Webb, why don't we get to our guest, please?
So, pick out the jams, pick up the soul, pour another glass of that rock and roll, turn up the band, find the hole, gonna lose control tonight. What do you want from me? I'm not American.
Annie Frey, how are you?
Doing okay. How are you?
I'm doing well, thank you. What's this? What are we playing here?
We created the ripball. I mean, it really took off. An instant success.
What is it? That was me?
That was you.
You're getting
I
called
didn't
out,
do
Mark.
that. I'm so sorry.
Did.
I don't know what I did.
I own up to my screw-ups, mister. And I make a lot of them.
Oh, boy.
I like that remix version, though.
That was pretty nice, huh?
I'll have to look that up.
So, Annie, what do you watch? You keeping an eye on today? I know this. I saw from Governor Rauner's office, and I don't want to only talk about Illinois politics when you come on here, but he's once again out there talking about what he's calling a bailout for the Chicago public school system. In the meantime, everybody else in the state suffers from it, right?
Yep. So the budget that they passed with that included that $5 billion tax hike a couple weeks ago, that incorporated the funding for the schools, all the dollars that were to go to the schools. But Mike Madigan at the 11th hour, which is when you see all the things that Mike Madigan does, what he did at the 11th hour is he put some language in that budget that said, the money's in here to fund education, but there's a separate spending bill that we are going to have to pass that tells us where the money is going to go and how much is going to go there. Well, there's a large portion of the $800 million that is in that. SB 1 is the bill that is being held right now by the Senate Democrats. A large portion of that money is going to go straight to Chicago public school system. And then a funny thing about the way the Chicago public school system works, it's supposed to fund itself. The teachers pay into a separate system than the rest of the state for their pensions, for their, all their benefits, and the taxes stay in Chicago. So it's not like the Chicago stuff comes out to the rest of the state. So when you take an income tax hike on downstate taxpayers, and now say that you want a chunk of that to go into CPS to help bail out the pension system there, that's not a fair use of a pretty significant ask on the taxpayers of the state of Illinois.
No, it's not. And it's $250 million a year.
Yes, and that's
Chicago.
Yeah, that's like the block grant that goes straight to Chicago. The rest of the money of the $800 million, the rest of that then gets divvied up according to the 852 school districts in the state. CPS being one of those. So the rest of that money there's still money going to Chicago out of the rest of the money, but that's just what they get to skim off the top.
But they didn't use it. So Rauner's education secretary pointed out yesterday, since 1995, we've been sending them $250 million a year that was supposed to be applied toward their pension bomb. In 11 out of 25 years, they only made partial or no pension payments with that money.
It's completely irresponsible management of money. And the really interesting thing that I just found out this week about CPS, Chicago Public Schools, is that the school board, the CPS school board, is appointed by the mayor. Mayor Rahm Emanuel.
Right.
They are not an elected school board. So the taxpayer is not really a factor in the negotiations that go on to these massive pensions that the CPS is involved in, and they don't have a way to hold anyone accountable when they don't manage the dollars correctly.
No, of course not. And the thing I've always found funny was the union president for the Chicago's teachers union. I used to have a really good soundbite with her where she talked about smoking dope a lot when she was younger and all this stuff in front of all the teachers, just cutting up and having a great time. Mm-hmm. In the meantime, they're overseeing this situation that's not unlike what was going on in Wisconsin, which is why the governor went in and stopped that situation where one group supports one politician, that politician gets elected and is then responsible for leveraging their next pay raise.
Yeah, it's
a conflict of interest.
It's good that you bring up Scott Walker, too, in Wisconsin. The amount of pressure and pushback that he received when he went in and reformed the way Wisconsin does their business. He went against the union. He went against what anybody said was a winnable circumstance, and he came out on top. And if you look at the numbers in Wisconsin right now, they're flourishing, and you look at Chicago and then the rest of the state of Illinois, and it is in a free fall right now with the way we spend our dollars.
Oh, it's sad to watch, but my biggest concern is that it's just going to be a matter of time before we're all going to be paying for it. I'm convinced of that. I don't see a way out of it for Illinois.
I don't see a way out of it at this point in time, because as much as they're willing to take more tax dollars out of the workers in Illinois, they don't show any responsibility when it comes to how to manage those dollars. And you can't continue to pump these, bailouts essentially that come off the backs of hardworking, tax-paying Illinois residents and put them into a system that is inherently broken and irresponsible with the way they handle it in Springfield.
Right. Listen to this real quick. Let me see if I can pop this up here real quick.
Stand up and say, education is a civil rights issue of our time. Now, he went to private school, because if he had gone to public school, he'd have had that lisp fixed. People are impressed. Let me tell you, I spent those years smoking lots of weed, self-medicating.
CPS.
Thank you. Sounds like you all did too.
That's her talking to her fellow teachers up in Chicago. I'm sorry, I've lost hope for what's going on up there.
One of the interesting things too about the way this is going to go down, a lot of Democrats, I see a lot of people who are in the teachers union, brass. On my Facebook feed, they're saying Governor Rauner needs to do his job. Governor Rauner needs to do what we sent him there to do, and that's to govern. Governor Rauner does not have the bill to sign right now. This bill was passed 2 months ago.
And they won't send it to him.
And they have not sent it to him because he said that he would mandatory veto that part where the money is shoved into the Chicago public school system. So what we're going to have here, he's going to get the bill on Monday. That they announced that today. He's going to get the bill on Monday. He's going to mandatory veto it. It'll go to the Senate. They will most likely vote to override his veto, and then it's going to go to the House. And that's where it gets really interesting, because Dan Beiser in Alton, Katie Stewart in Edwardsville, Jay Hoffman in Belleville, LaToya Greenwood in East St. Louis, and Jerry Costello in Redbud, those are all representatives right across the river that are Democrats, that if they vote with Mike Madigan on this, they are voting against their own students in their own district, and the funding that is there, they will be electing to send more of that money to Chicago than the own students in their own district. So it's going to be really interesting to see how this shakes out, because they're going to need all the Democrats and 4 Republicans in order to efficiently override the veto.
Thank you for calling them out by name, so that people that live over there and who are listening to this know who they are.
Yeah, it's important, and,
right?
and you should be contacting your representative, even if they're Republicans and you expect them to support the governor. And you should just let them know. It literally takes 2 minutes to make the phone call.
Yep. Listen to, I want you to get off that subject for a minute. And I was talking about Ferguson in the last hour, and I got sidetracked by what was going on in Washington, which isn't a surprise. But the Urban League of the United States is holding its nationwide conference in St. Louis today. They kicked it off this morning up with this new building they built on the site of the Quick Trip, which was burned to the ground in the Mike Brown protests almost 3 years ago. This is what Michael McMillan, who's the head of the St. Louis Urban League, had to say about that today. Whoops, I'm sorry. We potted up over there?
Yep.
That would have been operator error on my part.
But what it is a symbol of hope. We wanted to take a hopeless situation and turn it into a hopeful situation, and turn a setback into a comeback. And we want St. Louis to shine, which is why our National Urban League Convention is here in St. Louis, with over 20,000 people from the nation and the region that will come to activities during our 4 power-packed days of programming.
Now that chaps my hide, because calling Ferguson a hopeless situation and suggesting that this building they built on the site of the charred remains of a Quick Trip that were burned down for no other reason than a temper tantrum spurred by a complete lie is somehow a symbol of hope for the future, without addressing what really happened there, and the people that did that have never been held responsible for it. And the Urban League sure as hell isn't going to hold them responsible for it.
Yeah, the hands up, don't shoot lie that really did cause so much of the damage and the hate that took place after the shooting has been responsible for years now worth of I would say activism that's very convenient. It's an opportunity to seize upon something that is an idea that's been created, but the foundation of it is completely
And Mike Brown's parents were scheduled to show up there this morning when they held this kickoff, and I'm sure that their contributions will be celebrated by the Urban League this week. And obviously, they just got some payoff by some settlement from the city for $1.5 million, according to press reports.
You know, I knew people who were from Ferguson or lived close to Ferguson, and when this all happened, everybody was very sad because they were very proud of Ferguson.
Sure.
Ferguson was a good place to live and a good place to be, and it was booming with these new types of, restaurants and bars and shops, and it was on the up and up. It was, and now Ferguson it's a word that defines something that is based on a lie.
Right.
And it's sad that is what it's become, and it's sad that people can now use that as a means to an end that isn't exactly built on the solid foundation.
I've heard Mayor James Knowles make that same point more than one occasion. Annie Frey, thanks so much. I wanted to get to this whole transgendered issue. I'm afraid I'm close to running out of time. Any thoughts going through your head when you saw this controversy pop up this morning? Yeah,
I think personally, it's a stupid thing for him to go into right now, politically speaking. But the ironic thing about the transgender issue in the military is it's a reaction to the transgender movement. The especially when it comes to the military, is a reaction to standards that are set, one standard for men and women who could not make those standards. If you want to make it equal, if you want everyone to be treated equal, I don't care who you like, who you love, who you want to sleep with. I don't need to know any of that. Here is what you need to do to be a part of the best military in the world. This is the standard that you need to achieve. If you can do it, you can fight for my country. That's the way I feel about it.
I think you're right on, spot on. I've never agreed with them having to reduce standards, whether it's to be a fighter pilot or a front corps infantry member.
Yeah, and since we have gotten to the place where people have used that, again, playing on the activism that is there and using that as an opportunity, the military is not the place to make a social justice statement.
Amen.
And so if you're transgender and you're in the military and you can do what we need you to do just as well as any other, straight heterosexual male, I do not care. I want my country protected. I want my family protected, and I want the people who are capable there to do it. But that standard needs to be the same. And if that ends up that it's all men that are doing it, fighting in battle, if that's the way it ends up because the standard is high and those are the ones who can make it, then that's what it has to be. But if you have transgender women in there doing the same thing and they can meet the standard, let them meet the standard, let them fight for the country.
Amen. Annie, thank you so much. Tune in for the Annie Frey Show, Saturdays 5 to 7 here on FM News Talk 97.1.
Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it. Thank you. Back in just a minute, 314-969-9797, 866-455-9797. We're going to talk about our friend Debbie Wawa Schultz down there in Florida and the really disgraceful actions that she's taken over the last couple of months regarding this case, and now her IT guy's in custody. And an update on the truck victims down there in Texas, the illegal folks who were trying to sneak across the border and were put in that pickup truck, and it was tragic that some of them died. We found out a little more about some of the people that had snuck back across the border. Have you heard that story? It's coming up on the Marc Cox Show.
At 971talk.com/Cox. Dependable weather.
Clouds take control today. Chance of a couple of spotty
with Fox 2 meteorologist Dave Murray.
Brought to you by Air Comfort Service with 0% financing and double utility rebates on